Claudia from Dawn of Peace. Thank you for tuning in to the Authentic Podcast. When I went to study ancient healing arts with the indigenous curanderos in the Amazon rainforest, one of the first things I was shown was that my mind had overtaken all my other centers of awareness. I could have never perceived this to be a problem, as our culture adores rationality and measures everything first and foremost through the analytical mind. But what if we saw that actually the heart should be our primary center of consciousness and awareness, and our mind a servant to it? How would that change our experience of life? This is what we will explore today with my guest, Kerri Lake. Kerri is an author, gifted animal communicator, and celebrated teacher of the way of the heart. Welcome to the podcast, Kerri.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, I just loved hearing you give me that tiny little bit of history for you too. Just all of my cells are like, yes, 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 yes. This is why we're here.
Exactly.
Thank you.
It's amazing. We both have come to a similar place of awareness that, okay, to begin with, everything is kind of centered in the mind and we have to find our way back into the heart. So this is why I absolutely love your work and wanted to invite you to the show to just share all your knowledge and experience of this. So why don't we start by just you sharing a little bit about your background and what has led you to do this work?
Thank you so much. Well, it's funny, as you were listening, or as I was listening, and you were talking about going and studying healing with the shamans, I was recalling being a very young child and 3 and 4 years old, where humans made no sense. Like, I didn't have the language for it, of course, because I'm 3 or 4 or whatever, but it made no sense that people were responding to something different than what they felt. You know, we're all empathic, and I was, you know, I had the awareness that I had as a little kid, so I was listening energetically and empathically, and I could feel the difference between when the adults were convincing themselves of something and how different that was from what they were feeling in their body, and how odd it felt that this feeling was so obvious to me, and yet they kept choosing something else, right? Yeah. So my background is very much from straight experience, like being a kid with no vocabulary, trying to understand how to navigate life. And it was decades later that I learned people have words for these things, because I had no idea, you know? So the animal kingdom has always been huge in my life, and horses in particularly. Their heart is indescribable. The grace of the heart of a horse as a species, it just constantly asks, what can I do for you? And the heart of horse never requires you to be something different than you are. Right? The thinking approach is always about what isn't here and what could be here, or what isn't happening and what should be happening, what I am not and what I could be. That's that analytical mind. And here the horses in the animal kingdom just show up and they're like, well, there you are. And that's like, okay, here I am, let's play, you know? Yeah. I think that's ultimately what's in the heart of all of us, when you really let yourself organize for how it feels, rather than justifying what you feel, which is the mental approach, right? So I went through school, went to university to be a veterinarian, because that's what you do when you're good with animals, you know? Yeah. And it was so not the right path for me, because it wasn't about the heart. It wasn't about listening to animals. The university courses were how to use animals to generate profit as products, and then how to apply medicine, which is great. Like, don't get me wrong, I get that that's how society is organized, but for me, it was insanity.
Yeah.
right? So I had to learn how to be among humans the way horses can be, right? How can I be a human among humans the way horses can be among humans? Because that seemed like the only way life could happen. You know, I just got to the point where I couldn't should myself, you know, I couldn't put myself down enough. And that was just insane, you know, as a way of being human.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, yeah. So it's very, everything I share is directly from personal experience. And of course, meeting with different teachers from so many walks of life and so many different species, right? Like who your teacher is so dependent on your own listening. Like
Absolutely.
when I'm willing to listen, then everybody's a teacher. It's about how I organize my own awareness, not whether or not I'm missing the information you have, you know? So life has been constantly listening for how can I live in the absence of judgment, like the horses do.
I love that. So, would you say that discernment is different from judgment?
Absolutely.
So that the word judging means it has some kind of a negative weight to it.
Yeah, I think that so that the way it looks to me is the word and the idea of judgment implies polarity. It
Mm-hmm.
implies that there is an extreme on this end and an extreme on that end, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's positive, negative, good, bad, right, wrong, you know, should, shouldn't. You know it's judgment when you can find an opposite to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you can argue for one or the other. That's where you know you're playing with judgment. Now, there's nothing negative about judgment unless you're going to be judging judgment. Okay. To say judgment is negative is to pass judgment on judgment. So there's a feeling to it, you know, when we feel somebody passing judgment on ourselves, there's a feeling that comes with that might trigger a defense. It might trigger self-deprecation, you know, but there's a particular feeling that is a contraction. And that's one of the best ways to know when you're in in the presence of judgment is some part of you, some little cluster of cells is going, oh no, that's not life. Okay. Discernment is more like receiving guidance from our own higher consciousness that will never tell you what to do, but it will say, hey, here's your discernment. If you head in this direction, here's the feeling, here's the experience you're heading into. If you go in this direction, here's a taste of what the experience is going to be, but you're free to make any choice you wish, right? So
Okay.
discernment is more about awareness based on the clarity of senses, based on the relationship, like you introduced, where the mind is in service to the heart's guidance.
Yeah.
And the heart is never going to say, you better do this and you better not do that, and you better get on your horse and get to work. That's not the heart, right? That's the mind filtering an ego,
Yeah.
the collective ego, right? So that's a major clarity between judgment and discernment. Is judgment, you're always going to feel something contract, something withdraw, something defend, right? And with discernment, it will come not necessarily with comfort, but it will come with a sense that there is a direction to move. It'll be an invitation to move in a direction. That's what discernment will provide. And judgment will tell you where to stop.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? You
It makes
follow?
sense. It makes sense. So discernment is in service to us and others, whereas judgment can actually accelerate issues and polarize, like you were saying in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what judgment is all about. It's like
Yeah.
if you polarize something, then you just judge it. And it's really simple, really easy. Right?
Yeah.
But if you want to be on your journey, on your path, what is my next step? that's when we bring in discernment, not to get something correct, but to welcome clarity. And it feels different. The
Yeah.
experience of clarity is different than being correct.
Right. So it's almost like I'm just kind of visualizing this, because this is something that this year I really have been examining a lot. The difference between judging and discernment, and the importance of discernment, especially when you're in a sea of what feels like very distorting images and messages that can really lead us astray. That it's very important to discern where this path is going, where do I want to go, what is the messaging I'm getting. So it's like the discernment is almost like a compass that's just showing you the directions, but it's not saying north is wrong and east is right. It's just saying this is where north is. So if you wanted to go north, this is that way. But you're free to choose. So it's honoring the free will of everybody.
Absolutely. And so you see, like, even hearing you say that, my whole body relaxes, because there's no trap in there, right? It's just support for continuing your journey. And I love it. Yeah, this year there's been lots of things to learn how to discern about the information that's coming to us, about how do I react? Do I get a shot? Do I not get a shot? Do I wear a mask? Do I not wear a mask? Do I go out? Do I not go out? Just very simple, mundane things.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are waking up to the difference of discernment and judgment, because there's so many different things that you could interpret to just that it's just telling you, no, you're not allowed to go out of your house. No, you may not engage in this way. So many ways of limiting life. And that's that connection feeling. So that's how you know there's judgment going on there that says this is good and that's bad. Or even as subtle as suggesting, and this is kind of going off a little bit further, but even as subtle as suggesting that my life could be better than it is now, that's still engaging in judgment. That's still putting a stick in the ground and saying there's something not okay about my life right now, which is just a judgment about the way life is right now. It's, saying this is bad, something better is good. And again, if we just don't judge that for a moment, if we don't go, oh my God, I shouldn't be judging, and instead just say, okay, look at that, I'm judging this. That gives you a pause for even just a moment to wonder, I wonder how else I might navigate my life. I wonder what there is in my life that's amazing right now. I wonder what is going right in my life right now. Right? That opens the way to clarity, to gratitude, to movement. So you can create something different if you'd like things to be different.
Right. And so animals, because for many people it can feel vague, like how can you possibly live without that? But then when we stop to marvel at our animal companions who are sharing this beautiful earth with us, we see, okay, yeah, that is how they are. That is how they live.
Yes.
So they are an amazing example for us of how to just be present in whatever situation. Like I was just looking the other day, we were traveling with our dogs, and it was clear that they were very uncomfortable. They almost like kind of stacked on top of each other on a, windy mountain road. But they were just finding whatever position was the best position possible. And that was it. It wasn't some kind of big drama that they were engaging, it was just, okay, I'm going along with this tricky ride, but, I'm constantly present. I'm listening to my body. I'm trying to find the best. It's like, this is what we're needing to learn, right?
Well, and I love it because how often did your dogs bark at you and say, hey, drive slower. Hey, you're going too fast. Hey, take those turns differently. They don't. They pay it, like you're saying, they just pay attention to how it feels to be them, and they adjust when they need to.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. But the funny thing is the way animals function is so simple. It's so profoundly simple that for humans who have been indoctrinated into, the analytical, it's almost inconceivable that one could function at that level of simplicity. Like, how do you do that, Kerri? How are you supposed to live without making judgments and decisions, like you said? And it is possible, not only, just in an enclosed thing. Like, if I never leave the house, it would be pretty easy to just listen to what I feel, right? And cultivate that I move my body when I want to, rather than thinking about what I need to do. But to take that ease, that simplicity of how does it feel to be me, out into the world, that's when we really need some skills. It's some real discernment skills for, what am I feeling? Am I feeling my own energy or somebody else's energy? Are my thoughts and my unconscious thoughts creating what I feel? Or is what I feel coming from my authenticity?
Yeah.
These are the profound questions that have complex responses, but very simple truths to them. Like, ultimately, it's so simple, but not always easy.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, definitely. And I find that, it can be kind of paradoxical when we talk about the profound spiritual truths, that they are so simple, and yet, because of where we are, how far we've kind of gone away from the natural way of being, they can seem like an Everest to climb. What would be some of your kind of tools on how to begin to tune into your authentic self?
Yeah, thanks. I learned from the animals. I learned by watching them respond to people. And then, because I'm human, I went ahead and put words and language and stuff to it later on. But it is the connection with animals led me to this simplicity of, bring your awareness to your body and then do nothing about it. And we can play with that for a second so we can have the experience of it, rather than just the theory.
Yeah, sure.
You watch animals, and if you watch nature shows or something, the cheetah is chasing the gazelle. And if the gazelle escapes the cheetah, she goes back to her family and her herd, and her body shakes to release all of the adrenaline and tension. And then she just goes back to grazing. She doesn't hold on to the fear. She stays aware, of course, to her senses, because her body is what will tell her whether a cheetah is walking by because she's hunting, or she's just walking by because she's moving on. Your body and your senses are what tell you the difference between a person who's a predator and a person who is neutral, or a person who's there to offer love. That all is communicated through your physicality.
Yeah.
But we've been taught to place, like you said, a higher value on our analysis than our senses. So one of the greatest tools, the simplest tools to reconnect with your authenticity, I call it mind watch the body. And it starts by taking 10 seconds, literally. I'll count, right? Nobody else even has to count. 10 seconds to speak directly to your mind, your own mind, and see, how does it feel if I just tell my mind, buddy, thank you for all the hard work you do for me. And that's it. So do you want to do that? Like, just take 10 seconds.
Yeah, let's do that.
And just very genuinely, to the best of your ability, talk directly to your mind like a good friend, and just go, you know what? You do a lot of hard work just trying to help me. Thank you for that. And just see how it feels for 10 seconds.
Yeah, great.
And don't work at it. Just offer thank you. Four more seconds. Beautiful. So what was that experience like for you?
I felt an expansion and almost like a path of light opening visually.
Mhm. Isn't
Yeah.
that fun?
Yeah.
10 seconds, right?
10 seconds.
Because what we did, so now I'll just speak to the analytical part for a moment, okay? What we did is offer the mind that's so familiar with conflict, we offer it the opportunity to take a break from conflict for 10 seconds. And immediately you can notice an energetic shift, right? So in that 10 seconds, would you say your body got tighter or less tight?
Yeah, absolutely. Expanded, less tight, more just like, oh, thank you. So a sense of relief, like, oh, finally.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that relaxation, now I'm going to say this for the mind, the part that does like data, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a little point of data. When we play that way for 10 seconds, the whole body communicates relaxation, expansion. Just let it be a simple point of data, okay? Because that's what helps us build kind of a new history for how to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When a person, well, you tell me, when you're feeling genuinely authentic, how worried are you
Yeah, I'm not.
about
That's the
it?
thing. Yeah, absolutely. It's
Okay.
such a liberation when you
Complete.
come to accept all of yourself and as you are, and doesn't like it's the most liberating thing. Yeah.
Totally, totally. And so when you're feeling that liberation, that authenticity, would you say that that's closer to a sense of safety or threat?
Safety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Again, data point for the mind, right? We can have this little 10-second experience where we're recreating a friendship with the mind and doing it in a way where we actually watch the body become safe, and
Yeah.
we're doing it consciously, right? So we have that feeling of authenticity. We have the response of the cells of my body saying, oh yeah, this works. Relaxing, safety, expansion, open. That's how the body communicates your state of being, your inner state of being, right? So we playing this way, mind watch the body, we can generate safety, we generate authenticity, we generate clarity simply by giving the mind a job that actually serves all of those beautiful natural states of being. So now let's take it one step further.
Yeah.
Okay. So with your giving your mind a job to just very simply watch the physicality. Okay. If you don't look down at your hands, how do you know if they're touching something?
Yeah, I can feel.
Excellent.
Yeah.
How would you describe the sensation? What do your hands communicate to you that they say, I'm touching something? How do you know?
A sense of connection, warmth,
Mhm.
stability. Yeah.
How about texture? Is
Yeah,
it like
texture.
paper? Is
Yeah,
it texture like
soft.
paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Soft, warm,
Soft,
connected.
warm, connected. Yeah.
Cool.
Supported as well.
Perfect. So now, taking your awareness right to where soft, warm, and connected are in your hands. You don't push anything else away. Just bring your awareness to soft, warm, connected for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Just let that be the priority, and then we'll see what that was like for just 10 seconds. Really simple. Mind, thank you for playing. Watch the body. Yes, good. Three more seconds. Awesome. So now, really, really simple. Would you say, just in general, what movement did you notice?
I noticed more warmth all over my body.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like a sense of heat. Yeah, spreading.
Beautiful. So coming back to your question, what tools can help us experience our authenticity? This is the simplest, most direct way I have found to welcome your authenticity to come forward through you. It's different than doing things to seek our authenticity. It's acknowledging I have authenticity. I am unique. So I'm going to organize myself to be able to recognize the experience and create the space for it.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I love that. So powerful and so available at any moment.
So thank the animals. That's how they live all the time, right?
Oh my God.
Okay. So now, even as I'm talking, organize yourself so your awareness is where your hands are, where your hands say, here I am.
Yeah.
Okay. And notice that you can be aware of the sensation of your hands, the communication of your hands, and you can hear me at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Just go slow and easy, because a lot of people, their mind doesn't know how to organize that way. So we just go slow, right? The communication of the hands becomes the priority, no matter where I am. And then that begins to expand up into the wrists, right? Can you occupy your hands and your wrists while you're listening? Just play. Yeah, good. Play with that, right? And it changes your presence immediately. You know, people who have this kind of sensitivity, they're going to feel you change. And it's just going to be easier to be with you because you have removed conflict from your being by bringing your mind where your body is. Right? Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Removing conflict from your being in a very practical way.
Yeah. To me, it's like the most pragmatic thing we can do because it builds a different foundation than what we're used to. Like imagine now you're driving on a windy road and your puppy dogs are uncomfortable. You notice this and you want them to be more comfortable. And I would love to be more comfortable too. So rather than like try to reach back and pet them and tell them they're okay, which often feels like more anxiety, you know, what if instead I just acknowledge with my heart, I love them. I would love us to feel more comfortable. And then I organize my awareness and bring my awareness into my hands and my wrists. And then travel inside my body with my awareness, bringing my awareness up my arms to my elbows and just say hello to my elbows. Yeah. Up through the shoulders and through the torso, right? You begin to generate a different presence in a car on a windy mountain road. And you better believe that the dogs are going to feel that. And they are going to go, oh, that feels like safety. And the energy touches their bodies, it touches their cells. And that's how the animal kingdom communicates with one another.
Yeah.
Is beingness, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. This resonates on such a profound level in so many ways. There's so many things I'd love to say about this experience and what you're sharing, but let me just say that perhaps the most important thing, that when I began to tune into myself, you know, during my training with the Indigenous healing arts, and began to regain and re-experience all those different centers of awareness and my senses, I didn't have any idea how important they are in terms of reading energy, you know. And when I came back after my first like really long-term isolated spiritual communion, I came back to Europe after 10 months of being away to visit. One of the most challenging things for me was realizing that I'm communicating with people who are constantly giving me conflicting information. Their body and their energy, I'm reading perfectly clear what it's saying, but the words that are coming out of their mouth is in complete conflict with their energy. And I was like, how am I supposed to respond without lying? Because I know what they're actually saying, but they're telling me something else. So am I supposed to go along with their fictitious story to entertain what they want me to believe? Or am I supposed to respond to their authentic energy? Because these are two different things. This was like such a big struggle for me. Like, how do I communicate from now on? You know, like, do I play along, or do I just say, hey, it's okay, you don't have to worry. I know you're a bit nervous, but I love you. Like, do I just bypass all that nonsense or what? You know?
Oh my God, I love it. So how did you do it? Like, what did you come up with to navigate it? How did you do it?
Yeah, I just began to, I noticed I began to listen a lot more, and not take all the hooks. I felt like there were kind of like lots of these, I call them hooks, which are kind of like energetic entanglement opportunities, or emotional entanglement opportunities that are sent to go along a certain narrative. You know, maybe some drama or gossip or whatever that wasn't in alignment at all with what the energy of the person was actually wanting to do, which was to connect on a like heart level. So I would just like do the best I could not to engage with whatever the superficial thing was, and just with myself communicate with my beingness that I really want to know how you actually are. So yeah, I'd maybe entertain a little bit, but then I'd do my best to direct the awareness into, hey, you know, I love you, you know, just with my energy. And then oftentimes, you know, after 10, 15 minutes, you notice the people begin to relax and they forget that they ever had to hold such a mask, you know, or a front. Yeah.
I see. I think that's the whole key. And perhaps in different language, you know, when you know your own heart, and you have no agenda other than connection.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't really matter how long it takes for, you know, somebody else to run through their programs.
Yeah.
I can simply bring my awareness to my own body and my own heart center, and become the presence where you don't need to be different than you are.
Yeah.
I love you. That's what love is. You know, I require nothing of you, but I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. Then your presence just changes everything, and you watch people shift right before your eyes.
Yeah. I feel it's one of the biggest fears we have, and especially as women, like sometimes my heart just weeps thinking about how we've been molded to believe that we are our image. You know, like it's so heartbreaking for me how many of my own female friends still as well. I feel that they are almost like a, you know, like in this kind of cocoon where they're afraid to show themselves, and they try to be something from a magazine or a movie, and it's so much of their energy and life force put into that, and then the fear of what if my true self is seen beyond that. So they have to be constantly fixing their makeup and their hair, and they can't go out if it's windy because that will, and you know, like things like I can't go to sauna because I just curled my hair yesterday, and you know, things like these. And I recognize that because I used to have the same fear. Like I wouldn't leave my house when I lived in London if I didn't have makeup on. Like I thought that's just the way as a woman you have to be. You have to represent something. I don't know what it is. You have to, some kind of ideal. And so part of my initiations from liberating myself from all those, you know, requirements and limits I had on myself in the jungle was I shaved my hair.
I love it.
Because I felt like I have to learn how to love how I actually look without anything that I can hide behind. So I stopped wearing makeup and I shaved my hair, and I had to learn how to love the image in the mirror without any of that I was so used to. And it was
amazing.
Such a liberation. I tell you, it was just, oh my God. Like, wow, I didn't have to do anything because I had no hair. So I didn't even have to, like, it was just so liberating.
It wasn't very comfortable though, was it?
Yeah, it wasn't to begin with, you know, and getting used to the idea of I don't have to constantly check myself in the mirror, because when I used to wear makeup, I had to, because, you know, if it's going all over your face, you look like a clown. So I had to, you know, but then you realize I don't have to do any of that. So then you like, that took my awareness from that constant self-checking of my image, from a kind of constantly externalizing my awareness to imagining someone looking back at me, from that place of just sensing myself. And that was one of the biggest shifts in my way of carrying myself, and of, you know, discovering my femininity truly from within, rather than, you know, always trying to make myself look like something that I wasn't, you know?
If that's what feminine is, right? It's externalization with so many rules about, you know, if your body has this kind of plumbing, this is how you're supposed to carry yourself.
Yeah.
And it to me, I never understood it either. It didn't make any sense, because it looked to me like these are people that are hating themselves. They're competing for who hates themselves most, so they can change themselves the most, you know. And it's just, and it's not wrong. It makes so much sense that people function that way.
Of course.
Just given patterns. But it's once you do start dropping into your heart and exploring the experience of your own presence, then it can feel like insanity for a little while. Like, who am I? Do I do this? Who am I if I don't do this? Who am I if I don't curl my hair for one day? That can be insanity for so many people. And I have complete compassion for that. You know, like, I think people will ask me all the time, how do you help the people who aren't seeking? How, you know, they're in pain, they're suffering, but they don't know it. And you've already put out exactly the way, which is love. It's to come to yourself, know yourself, let yourself like really occupy your own body first with that presence that we just played with 10 seconds at a time. Occupy your own body first, and then go interact with other people with this priority. Rather than, you know, and of course you're going to have thoughts that end up saying, oh my God, look at her hair. Whoa, wait, where did that come from? Oh my God, I should be at the store by now. Oh, where did that judgment come from? You know, it really is self-inquiry. It's the willingness to be transparent with yourself that generates authenticity. You know, there's nothing outside. Not everybody can go to the Amazon, you know, and not everybody wants to go to the Amazon. It would be profoundly effective, you know, but we can play gently right in the middle of our lives as they are right now. Just taking 10-second breaks from judging ourselves, you know, like that's why, because look at how busy everybody's mind is. But when you have the experience of 10 seconds, and then after that 10 seconds, you get permission, total permission to judge everything, right? Like if I have an impulse to check my makeup, I'm going to take before I do, I'll take 10 seconds and truly feel my hands. And then after that, if I still want to check my makeup, I can. You know, it takes commitment, doesn't it? It takes such commitment.
Oh my God. Yeah. All the time. But it's also like, it doesn't feel like a burden, because you're learning that the more I do this, the better I feel. You know, it's a new way of being, and it's so liberating. But sometimes it's funny also, you know, we have these egregores of collective thought, and they are very much linked to certain places, you know, like where those thoughts are generated. So I noticed also, coming back from that raw wilderness into cities, that as I would enter cities, I would literally hook into this collective sphere of thought, and suddenly, like some old program could kind of put me in like a little mode, and I start thinking to myself, oh my God, I haven't shaved my legs. I'm here walking in Amsterdam. Do they think I'm like some kind of dirty hippie? And I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Like, what do you mean? love every part of me. What are you talking about? Like, who is this? What is that voice? Is that some like commercial that's infiltrating my consciousness or what? You know?
Yeah.
So it's
yes, that's exactly what it is.
yeah. So it's like, it's so funny you notice these. And then, so you have to pay attention to your own thoughts, but also when you're entering these, you're like kind of egregores, you know, when you're in cities, it's completely different programming than when you're in nature. You don't get those glitches, you know, in the mind.
Totally. It's absolutely true. Like, it's happening all the time. Like, none of those thoughts that suggest that you should hate yourself,
Yeah.
It's like a collectively created field. Those thoughts don't even belong to you. They don't even belong to me, you know? And it does take commitment to be that aware. But like, the thing to remember is you're not committing. Well, the thing to remember is, what am I committing to? Am I committing to changing myself, or am I committing to actually experiencing my own authenticity? And why? Because I'm tired of hating myself.
Yeah.
You know, it can be that simple, especially for people in Western cultures where hating yourself is expected, you know,
Absolutely.
so they can sell you products to make you feel better about yourself, which is insane, you know. But it's the way that people have been conditioned, and it's the way people are controlled, frankly.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to comment on is that the hands, like there's something really, really special about the hands, isn't there? Like I noticed in my own healing journey, you know, I started from healing a lot of trauma. So I worked through a lot of soul wounds or burdens. But the last place where my trauma was still expressing itself, way after my emotional world had found a lot of equilibrium and peace, was still my physicality. So like my hands was the thing that was telling me when I was regressing into like physical memories of trauma or anxiety. I would notice that I was squeezing my fists. And by that technique, it's so incredibly synchronistic that you're saying about the directing awareness into hands. This came just from my own intuitive feeling of this is how I heal my anxiety, which was still present in my body, although I wasn't having the anxious thoughts, but I was feeling it in my physicality was open your hands, open your palms, and direct your and say to yourself, I am safe. I am safe. And so that was my practice whenever I caught myself squeezing my fists was I am safe, open the palms. And then another mantra I would sometimes say as well was, I am ready to receive, I'm ready to give. To like connect into that interactive, you know, that reciprocal nature of life, of being here. So that was for me a massive kind of parameter, was checking my hands.
Because it just interrupts that pattern, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it gives you an action to do as well. The opening the hands, like it's like it becomes like a ritual at that point. You know, you have a physical movement that embodies I am safe. And that's profound, just in the way humans are built and programmed. When you have a movement that goes along with the intention or the mantra, it's what begins to change the physicality. I don't know. I know people are learning more about this, but just like you're saying, that the body can house history and patterns outside of what the mind is aware of.
Yeah.
Right. What you're saying, the body is reacting even if the mind thinks it's happy. And it's the same thing, you know, when you and I can feel that people's bodies are totally out of whack, but they say they're fine. The words don't match the experience. That's what's happening too. You know, their bodies are reliving trauma when their mind is convinced themselves out of survival that they're okay. Right. So like bringing awareness to the body simply because you can, that is healing. That's actually the ultimate of what healing is bringing the clarity with no judgment that frequency, that vibration through the cells of my body, the body can't help but shift itself to display more clarity. I mean, that's how it works. That's how energy works. And that's the beauty of being human, is we have that creator ability. You know,
Yeah.
animals will do this by default because that's how they're built. That's how they're programmed. But we as humans are the only ones that have the opportunity to go against our nature and then discover what that journey is like.
Yeah.
And then make a different choice to no longer go against our nature and discover what that journey is like, you know? And that's what I'm so happy for 2020 and everything that's happened, because it has kind of shaken some dust off of a lot of humanity and got people looking at whether or not they want to keep living this way, or if there's something else possible,
Yeah.
you know? And how what's it like when we connect? What's it like when we actually honor each other rather than by default just go around hating each other because that's what we're supposed to do, you know?
Yeah, when you put it like that, it's so like, it's so simply put, but that is basically what it's been reduced to. Like, we
Yes.
are a culture of self-deprecating and self-hating and hating others, you know, like.
And it's, I mean, when
Yeah.
you go bigger picture, that's the only way to wield control over a population, is to get them to fear and hate.
Yeah.
Because people who are sovereign, who are embodied, are looking for collaboration.
Yeah.
They're looking to create together. They're looking for community,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and you can't control that. Community takes on its own life, you know. Collaboration becomes something that never existed before. And woo, that's like you just created a new sun that shines, and now more can happen. And
Yeah.
when all that comes from the heart, it benefits everybody, right?
Yeah.
And it's very different from what humanity's been doing for millennia, but
Totally.
that's where we are. We have that opportunity, one at a time, to reclaim that sovereignty. And there are more of us, literally, I think, than have ever existed on this planet. More of us aware of this now. We can have this conversation and share it,
Yeah.
right? So we are doing community for the purpose of the heart right now, you and I, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And
It's amazing.
it truly makes us uncontrollable. And then from there, it's like, okay, if I'm going to be uncontrollable, why? What makes me act? What do I act toward? And for me, it's always from the heart, for the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Oh, so beautiful. I'd love to hear more about your experiences with the animals, because I just, animals for me, I just see them as angels, you know, in a furry coat or in a feathered or scaled body. I mean, they are just such profound teachers for us. So
Yes.
the indigenous, obviously, they talk about medicine, that the animals carry medicine. So that's like, they are embodying an archetypal energy that we can learn from. And certain species of animals have different kind of governing essences and medicines. So what have you discovered in terms of the animals that you've connected with? What are some of the medicines that they have to share with us?
Yeah. So ultimately, it is love. It is the reality that you don't need to be different than you are. Right. And so, yes, you know, a monkey has a different frequency than ants,
Yeah.
and a falcon has a different frequency than a domesticated dog. But through that filter of falcon or dog is always this presence that requires you to be nothing other than you are. They just are going to show up and say, okay, who are you? And and either I have the ability to hear myself and feel myself and let them see who I actually am, or I have defenses and protections and filters in front of me. The different medicines, the different tones of the different animals some of them have just the consciousness of that species has a more familiarity with the human layers. Domestic dogs have been around humanity for a long time. So at high levels of consciousness, canines can handle being around humans a lot more easily than falcons.
Yeah.
And the clarity of love is still there, right? Falcons don't need humans to be different than they are. They just go, well, I'm a falcon and I do this, and that doesn't match what I do, so we'll see you later. So to me, the different medicines of different animals, discovering all of those and learning as a human, learning who to receive from, that's what makes it medicine, is the clarity of which energy can help harmonize this aspect of me at this point. Whether it's ant medicine or bear medicine or wolf medicine, it's allowing the learning and the clarity to sense what's out of harmony here and whose natural state of being can bring my state of being back into harmony. That's what medicine is to me. Yeah. And so my experiences have all been so straight direct to love. My family always had pets, dogs and cats and bunnies and all that stuff. But when I went to college and started having my own experiences with animals, I was often put with the animals that had been treated poorly or abused, or they were the difficult ones, or nobody can handle that horse. Kerri, do you want to go meet him?
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you about Navarre, and I'll tell you about Miles.
Yes, please.
Navarre was a big thoroughbred, and he wasn't ever a racehorse because he didn't want to be. He wouldn't run. So because he wouldn't run, they took him to the kill pen just to be sold for meat. And it happens a lot. But somebody found him there and pulled him out. She had a magnificent relationship with him for like 10 years, and he was still a stallion the whole time. And just a very rich life. He knew who he was, and he knew how to communicate with people, because the woman that found him was also very telepathic, very sensitive. So he learned how to listen, and she was listening to him. At some point, she sold him for whatever reason. They castrated him, so he was no longer a stallion, and all of his chemistry changed. So it's like, okay, now who am I?
Yeah.
And then he got put with some people that didn't understand him. He got injured and then was just locked in the barn for like a year. And everybody was scared to death of him because he had so much energy, because all he did was stand around for a year. So, Kerri, will you go meet him? And, he's dangerous. I'm like, okay, yes, I'll go meet him. So when I went to meet him, I always go in with everything wide open. Like, I'm not going to tell him who I am. I'm not going to tell him what to see. I'm just going to walk in using all the tools that I have and just say, this is me. Would you like to say hello? And it's the same presence. It's that wide open presence. So when I got to the barn and I walked into his stall, he said hi, and I said hi. And I walked in, closed the gate behind me, and went all the way to the back. He turned, walked up to me, and he just put his face in my chest and started to cry. And when I say that, yes, there was water coming out of his eyes, but it was the feeling of when somebody's crying. You know what that feels like. Animals can emit that as well. So he just put his face in my chest and he started to cry, and he said, "Thank you for coming." And so I'm just there rubbing his ears, this dangerous horse, and all he was confused and frustrated, and he didn't know what to do, and nobody was helping him. So I just listened and I rubbed his ears, and I told him, not out loud, but just with my clarity and awareness and how it feels. I told him, I'll come back tomorrow and we're going to take you out. You're going to get to stretch your legs. And my only request is you leave my body unharmed. And the wording on that, the way that that's constructed is important. It's very different than don't hurt me. Like, feel the difference for yourself, right? Leave my body unharmed.
Yeah.
It's an action we can do together rather than a blockage of what I don't want. Communicating with animals, you always want to give them a direction to go rather than tell them no, which is just the opposite of what most people learn.
Yeah.
So I went back the next morning and I went to the barn and I got the halter and I was about to open the gate and he's like, I'm going to rear, which means, standing up on his hind legs and the front legs are up in the air. He told me straight, I said, if we go out, I'm going to rear up. And I said, thank you for telling me. I'll be ready, right? This is the communication. And I had zero fear because he was honest with me, right? It gives me the opportunity to do no harm to him as well. So put the halter on and we stepped out and there were, 6 or 8 or 10 people watching because they hadn't seen that horse out for a year. So we took him out and as soon as we were outside of the barn, he's 16 feet tall.
Wow.
Up in the air. And I was holding the lead rope, like literally with my fingertips, just making sure he didn't get tangled. And his energy was so big, the people 20 feet away stepped back.
Wow.
And he's like, whoa. And then he comes down on all fours again. And people's eyes are like this. And I just rub his shoulder and I told him, good job, buddy.
Oh my God, I love that.
And he's like, okay. And then, he like turns and he looks at me again because I'm on his side over here. And he's like, I'm going to do it again. I'm like, okay, go. And boom, straight back up again. Just so then he just came back down and I rubbed his shoulder, put my hand over his back. Connection, right? This is what communication and connection do. They create safety.
Yeah.
I still had to keep my body in an appropriate place. I didn't go stand underneath his feet, There's wisdom to this. But the wisdom comes so easily when the priority is listening. And not just listening to him, listening to my own body, being aware of if I'm afraid, I'm not going to hide from it. If I'm afraid, I'm going to go right to where I feel the fear and do exactly what you said. Relax. I'm in no danger.
Yeah.
And if I am, I will move, right? And being very pragmatic. So Navar and I went on to have like 8 years together and he taught me, he's still teaching me from our time. He's since left his body, but I still learn from my time with him and how it feels to be me when I'm with him. That's ultimately like what animals taught me is how to be aware of how it feels to be me. Then from there, that's like my foundation. Then I can tell if a new energy comes in, that's something other than me. So I'm going to reclaim myself and address it with wisdom. It's reorganizing.
Yeah.
Miles was a 21-year-old burro. And when I met him, nobody had touched him with a rope or a halter for a long time because he wouldn't let you get near him. He had been treated poorly and kind of hog-tied and dropped on the ground just so they could trim his feet. And that was hugely horrible and traumatic for him. And so nobody was taking care of his feet. His hooves were getting long enough that they were curling forward. It's called snowshoes. And, it's harder and harder for him to walk to where his legs are hurting. And he would like use his teeth and grind on his legs and was tearing his skin just to try to relieve something. That's what Miles was when I met him. And, you know, burros are crazy smart. They know everything. They can see everything. They're so wonderful. So, you know, how do you address this for an animal that won't let you touch him with a rope? I mean, he's happy to eat your sandwiches, but you can't touch a rope, you know, touch him with a rope. So what I did was 100% giving him free choice. I tuned into my body, right? And I just, anytime I saw him or thought about him, I had to construct my communication pretty deliberately. And so what I said to him was, hey, we're going to take care of those legs. You let me know when you're ready. But when I said, we're going to take care of those legs, I generated the feeling of ease, the absence of pain, moving freely, softness, right? That's real communication. That's when your body is saying the same thing as your words and the same thing as your thoughts. Yeah. That's where animals live, right? So it took about a month. And I would just tell him anytime I saw him, like, Miles, look how handsome you are. Hey, we're going to take care of those legs. You let me know when you're ready. And then I would just move on. And he was like watching to see if I was telling the truth. And he would literally like come close to me to see if I would grab at him. And I could feel that. But of course I didn't grab at him because I'm like, oh, I see your game. No, you let me know when you're ready. And so finally the day came. Like I was talking to some people and Miles came up over here to my right. And he walked up to me and he looked up at me like this and he just gave me his ear and he goes, okay, I'm ready. And it was one of those moments of like, oh my God, it's happening. And, but I had to just stay congruent, you know, it's all being aware of your own communication. But so the other part of Miles, he didn't like being in the barn. He just didn't want to be enclosed for any reason, right? But when he told me he was ready, I had also been telling him, we need to put you in the barn to do this because it's going to be easier for me. He walked himself into the barn and walked just totally free. And I'm like right behind him, and put himself in the stall. And on the way, I picked up some tools for trimming his feet and I picked up some rope and stood there in front of him. And I showed him the rope. And I'm like, hey, buddy, see this? We're not going to use this. And I threw it out the door and then closed the door behind me and said, let's go. And he just stood there perfectly still and held up each of his feet for me to trim and get his feet comfortable again. And I tell you what, it is the sweetest picture, seeing this big fat burro literally run out the barn and throw himself on the ground and it's like rolling and scratching his back and just celebrating because his feet don't hurt anymore, right? It's just, wow. It's indescribable, really. You know, that's what happened, but it's about how it feels to be in the middle of that experience, you know?
Yeah.
And that animals offer that to us 100% of the time, you know? So, and then, okay, I got to tell you about the lizard.
Yeah.
So mind you too, when I was doing all this and playing with all this clarity, I had never heard, I mean, I'd heard the word shamanic. I knew basically what shamanism was. I had done no studying. It was all 100% from just listening, feeling what feels authentic.
Yeah.
And having the courage to disregard everything else and say, no, this is what's going to work.
Yeah.
I'm doing it, you know? And perhaps my strong stubbornness played because parents are like, want you to do something else. Kerri, you're never going to be successful with horses. You're never going to make any money with animals. You should be an engineer. And I'm like, okay, but that would be deadly for me.
Yeah.
So that very much made authenticity a high priority, even though I didn't know the language yet. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, another day I'm out with the horses, just hanging out and sitting on the ground, and Navarre was eating over here, which, by the way, having the opportunity to just sit on the ground next to horses while they eat, that is sublime. They're breathing and they're chewing, and wow. I really I love creating that for people. Like, you do nothing, just sit there, relax, and listen, and changes your body. It just puts you in a different state of being. So that was a side note, but it's true.
Amazing.
So anyway, I'm just sitting there, and down to my right, under a bush, is this little tiny lizard. Like, his body and his tail were only like that big. But he was so mighty. He's sitting under that bush, soaking up the sun on the dirt, so the dirt's so warm and the sun's coming down. And he notices me sitting there. He's maybe a foot, away from me. And he sees me and he looks up at me. And I'm looking down at him. And I'm like, hey, buddy. And he's like, I'm a lizard. I'm like, okay. But then he proceeded to just emanate how awesome it was to him to be a lizard. And so all this, it wasn't dialogue. It was sharing the beingness of it. And he's like, feels warm. And he loved being fast. You know how fast lizards can be, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I love it. I've been a lizard so many times. I love being a lizard. I'm low to the ground. I can touch the ground. I can feel the ground. And he's like going on and on and on. And all this is presenting not in words, but in concepts and pictures and knowing, just knowing and the feeling. Like, is this tiny little creature, but is these waves of energy moving through me.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there laughing with him. I'm like, that's so cool, dude. And then Navarre feels all this good energy and he starts coming over, and the lizard's like, oh yeah, no. And he's like, boom, out. He just took off under the bush. But it just leaves you with this undeniable experience of connection. And talk about safety, talk about relaxation. It all comes from being available for somebody else to touch you, to reach you at those levels. And you just go, yeah, nothing to do. Just, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what the connection with animals is like for me. It's just real life happening. No need for it to be different unless we need to change something. But when it starts first from connection, then whatever change you need to make feels like even more harmony. And it's ecstasy, because you can feel everybody's heart coming together.
Wow. That just makes me connect to, when you were telling the story about the horse didn't like being in the barn and the legs were aching and all these different things. Like, imagine how many human beings, sisters and brothers from our family are in a similar situation, but because of the way that we live with this analytical mind and all these programs and the indoctrination, we're not even necessarily able to communicate that at all. That I live in this trapped little place, which is completely blocking me from blossoming into the person or into the soul that I know I am, the beingness that I know I have within me. And I feel constantly trapped. I mean, how much of the behaviors that we witness, the anxieties, the frustrations are coming from such a base need just to be ourselves, but somehow we're in environments that don't serve that.
Yeah. Yes. And consciously or unconsciously perpetuating
Yeah.
that fear of connection, right? So again, this is why I love having these conversations, like to first just speak to that. Thank you for saying all that. Because yes, you're right. So many people are like, I know I'm trapped. I don't know how to get out.
Yeah.
And I don't know who else might care to help me get out. I know that's the big one too.
Yeah.
You
Is
know,
anyone listening to me? Does anyone, do I have an opportunity? Where is my Kerri who comes to me and says, hey, I want to help you. Tell me when you're ready.
Yeah.
You know, we all need that.
And you know what? I think that's ultimately the greatest gift we can offer each other. That's what healing is. That's what lets you heal yourself, reclaim yourself, is to be seen, to be recognized, but not seen as broken, right? Even people who are going through cancers, or this is broken, you know, their leg is broken, or mental health difficulties, or whatever it is. Like what you just said, like how can I walk up to them and say, wow, I can see where you're at. You let me know when you're ready and we'll guide you out. It's empowering. You know, it's not becoming a savior. I think that's part of where a lot of the healer paradigm has gone, is a lot of healers, not consciously and not maliciously, but they operate as the savior. I'm the one who can fix you.
Yeah.
That's never the case.
No.
It's not how it works.
No way. The best healers are the ones that make themselves obsolete. You know, they're the ones who inspire you to find your own healing ability just by emanating that, sister, brother, I've been there. I walk with you. I hold your hand, you know, side by side, honoring. Like for me, for example, when we hold our healing retreats, and when it's time for me to sing for our pasajero, we don't call them patients or clients, they're passengers, because we're all passengers in life. So when I sit in front of a passenger and it's my turn to sing for them, first and foremost, I say thank you, you know, in my heart, because I recognize that I'm sitting in front of a incredible, sacred being, a human being, and they have found confidence to come here to find solace for their pain. And that place of trust, that connection that we already have, is such a gift that I like to pause for a moment just to say thank you for that. And I feel like that's if we can establish that in all of our communications, imagine how that could transform our world.
Yes.
Like, yes. I've always been a lover of humanity. People say, you're mad. They say human beings are the virus here. They are the worst. I was like, no, it's like torture for me when I listen to, I think we are magnificent beings. Oh my God. Have you seen the art that some of us is capable of doing, or the athletic performance? So like, a holy mother of God, have you not like ever met a human being? You know?
I know, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yes. So have you seen the movie Wonder Woman that came out just a few years ago?
No, I haven't.
I just watched it for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It takes place during World War II. So there's so much darkness. And there's Ares, the god of war, who is inciting humanity to continue to, hopefully, in his eyes, one day destroy itself, right? Because they keep doing that. So he's just going to fan that flame till they all die, and then the earth can regenerate. And Wonder Woman, Diana, is also a god, and only a god can defeat a god, right? So she comes down to earth and she's witnessing all of this. And here's Ares keeping the war going and trying to get her to see how humanity is a virus and how humanity just needs to die.
Yeah.
But he's already had an experience of love in and among humanity. So no matter how much he throws at her, and he's saying, look how horrible they are. Look at how terrible they are. She's standing there contemplating what he's doing, all the darkness that's around. But more powerful than all of it was the one experience of love, where the man that she met, just the way he connected, he saw what she was about, and he ended up sacrificing his life, but with great love, like pure love and clarity. And that one moment, there's all this darkness, and she's like, no, I stand for love. And then everything, of course, changes. It's profoundly simple.
Yeah.
And so powerful, but up to each of us to experience that part of ourselves that just says, no more. And the moment you do, the love starts bubbling and churning and emanating and through you, because that's what light does. That's what love does.
Yeah.
Is it expands and it changes things. It changes anything unlike itself, right? And all we have to do is say, yep, you know what? I'm game. I'll have that experience. And then boom, it's going to start coming into your life in whatever way you're available.
Yeah, totally. I love that. That's that, like the power of holding our holding that awareness of our potential, that honing in on the fact that we are creative beings with creative
Yes.
consciousness. And if we so choose, from this moment on, we can just help others blossom by recognizing their sacredness, by honoring them as they are, as building, bridges to those who would like to, create separation. It's like, we don't need any of that. It's all just bollocks,
Well, and to bring it back around to discernment, right? Where we started our conversation, like really, and I've played with this very directly, right? So speaking totally from experience, you can play with the discernment of this feels like love or something else.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep it that simple. So, if I meet somebody and I can sense the light of their heart, that feels like love, but then their behavior is something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
The discernment is simply going, that's something other than love. Got it. Thank you for letting me know. I'm coming back to love, and let my words match that frequency.
Yeah.
Right. So that even if I'm standing next to somebody who is completely wrapped in their judgment and their analysis, I don't need to judge where they're at. I can simply discern what I'm looking at. And if I dive into that, it's going to take me in that direction. If I come back to my own heart and feel my body, connect where my body is, let my heart come through my body, it's going to take both of us in a different direction.
Yeah.
So there's that simplicity of, this is a beloved standing, like exactly what you're saying. I love it so much. This is a beloved before me.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I walk in that truth and maybe discover parts of myself I have never met before?
Yeah. Yeah. And not knowing, we only get to see a glimpse of each other, not knowing at all what kind of, overgrown hooves he may have, or what kind of, barn he's stuck in. We don't see these things. They're not perceivable for us from the first instance. So I love that, just holding people in that compassion, and just recognizing that there's a reason. Nobody wants to be mean. It's like that dangerous horse analogy, like, oh, he's a dangerous horse. How often do we say that about each other? Oh, that guy's an asshole, or whatever, we put a label on them. We've only gotten to see them in a short passing of their life experience. Maybe they've done amazing things. Maybe they are, a trapped, beautiful artist that never got to express themselves. And because of that, they feel this burden, like millions of other scenarios. How can we bring out the best of them? That's what I feel the love analogy, being a sun, is so perfect, that it just brings out the best of everything around it.
Yes, absolutely. And then offer them as well. Like, this is the part that does feel hard for humans. Offer them as well the opportunity to be exactly as they are.
Yeah.
I want to read, can I read a poem to you?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is one that came when I actually met a person who had spent like 12 years out in the forest in Alaska by himself. And his presence was just so pure. He still had some of his own mental filters, but the presence was so inspiring for me. And I wrote, let me pull it up really quick here. I wrote this poem not really to him, but to love, to what love is, to the beloved that you're talking about. And it's called Beloved.
Yeah.
So, beloved, as you look away from yourself and keep your heart hidden, I understand. Beloved, so precious that you are here on the planet is enough. Beloved, here is light so that you will see when you're ready to peek out from behind your hands. Beloved, you are magnificence, and you are not the only one. Your great gift to me is that you be exactly as you are, beloved.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
I love it.
Oh.
I think that just sums up exactly what we're talking about, you know?
Yes, perfectly.
Mm.
And if we can borrow the eyes of the, companion animal or our loving parent or someone we know loves us dearly in a moment where we feel we're hard on ourselves and beating ourselves up and I don't know, going away from ourselves. If we can borrow those eyes for a moment and just remember the love that they look at us with, it can be another reminder of going back into that place.
Yes. So that just reminds me of Bernie. And Bernie's a dog that lived with me for 14 years. Basically, he was my parent,
Yeah.
And as he was nearing the end of his life, actually, yeah, it was very near the end of his life. I was in a very, very difficult marriage that eventually ended when I called the police for help, right? So it was a really difficult marriage. And I was just standing there staring at the wall, like literally. And I tuned into my heart because I didn't know what to do. And I asked Bernie, I said, what is it that you want me to take from our time together? What was I supposed to get from you being with me? Because you're gone or leaving, and now what do I do? And what came from that purity of love is exactly what he just said. He said, see yourself the way I see you. That was his entire wish for me. See yourself the way I see you. Oh. And there's an experience to that, helping people who are so analytical transcend their familiar way. It's not about learning new things for your mind. Mm-hmm. It's about reorienting to the experience of the body. And from there, you have a new way to relate to life. So it's not about learning life differently. It's about learning a new relationship with life. And that's where you can experience connection and harmony.
Absolutely. And even just returning to the remembrance that we all have had, that we've started with as little, babies and that place of beingness.
And honor for everybody. Like this whole idea that everybody's unique, it's actually true, right? Like how kind can I be with myself the same way a dog would be to say, oh, well, there you are. That's how you feel? Okay. Well, we could go for a walk, they're learning that kind of simplicity, and that I call it the kindergarten heart, being kindergartners with each other, with ourselves. If I'm having a hard time, can I just talk to myself and go, it looks like you're having a really hard time. Yeah, I'm having a really hard time. I can see that. I'm here. I got you. But I'm having a hard time. I know. I'm supposed to have all the answers. That sounds like a lot of pressure. right? And just acknowledge. That's so healing, and it does take assistance to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Once we can form that relationship with ourselves, that's what changes your presence, and whatever work it takes becomes welcome. Like, please bring me the next thing that I can do to be kinder to myself, because the direction that takes me is so profoundly beautiful, and that's clearly the work that you do. That's what my work is all about, and how blessed we are that there's multiple ways.
Yeah,
Multiple
absolutely. That's why I say that's why we were created, to be so many, because we are each other's teachers and support, that's why we have all these, amazing people that we share this life with. So let us celebrate that and keep building bridges in this time of, separation. It's more needed than ever. So Kerri, to wrap this amazing heart-to-heart connection with you for now, to wrap it up for now, can you please tell our listeners how they can find you, or anything that you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you so much. So my website is the easiest way to find me. And it's just kerrilake.com, KERRILAKE.com. And then on my website will just be announcements for in-person events that, I'm planning to be in Wales in April, Colorado a couple of times, and I'm sure more things will pop on. So.
Oh, that sounds amazing. You're a busy lady.
It's so much fun. I would be I wouldn't know what to do with myself. That's the thing too, isn't it? Like, once you feel yourself as your own source of energy, and it's beyond finding your purpose,
Mm-hmm.
It's actually experiencing your heart in action.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what you do, that go feed somebody. If you're having trouble, feed somebody and try to stay depressed,
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. One another, it just is life-changing.
Absolutely. And you are a living embodiment of that. Thank you so much for all the amazing work you're doing. And thank you for being a guest at my show.
You're thank you. Thank you for having a show, for all the work you're doing, which I didn't even really get to learn much about. So I will look forward to that. Thank you. Thank you for reclaiming yourself. This is the greatest gift to everybody. Thank you so much for that.
Likewise.
I just thought that something good is gonna happen.